Hello and welcome to my Nature Diaries. Today, as I'm working through this layout with you, I am going to share with you 9 tips for painting little mini landscapes and vignettes in your nature journal or sketchbook. Create a white border around your painting. This is just a perfect way to set off your painting and to get the whole layout started. The next is imagine your layout design. This is a super important tip for me. One of the things I do to prep for this imagination session is by looking at other art that inspires me online and that really can help get me set up for when I'm getting ready to paint my own nature journal or layout. Start with a strong foundation. If you've watched my videos before, then you'll know I have shown these little shapes, squares, and rectangles many times, and I use these to create a visual layout so I can now, in my mind, take those photos that I have kind of designed where I want in the layout, and I use these little boxes and shapes to give me some kind of foundation to start my drawings with. While you can certainly skip this step, I do feel like it's a good confidence booster because it gives you a foundation for all of your drawings, and you can see visually that they're all going to flow well together and look good on the page. Try a textured background. I have been experimenting with these textured backgrounds pretty much for this whole journal. I really have discovered how much I like the idea that by putting a background there, you're taking away that fear of the blank page. The other thing I really like the most, I think, about this kind of background is that it's really good when you're trying to create like a little landscape, or if you're trying to create a little scene. It's less intimidating because you have some tones, light tones and mid-tones already set aside for you. And so to create the watercolor picture, it doesn't feel as overwhelming. I think these textured backgrounds can also create a harmony between the whole composition. And so, in other words, it's going to help tie together all three. I'm going to put 3 little paintings in this layout. This textured background is also going to give me that forest feel that I'm really looking for. Next, we have take your time. It doesn't really seem like a tip, but it really is a valuable one, I think. Taking your time doesn't mean that you just don't rush through a painting. You can paint fast. That's not the issue. I think it's more about taking your time to focus on your reference photo, or if you're outside and you're looking at something, you're taking the time to look closely at what it is that you're trying to paint. Feel free to take breaks during a painting like this, especially one that is a little bit more complicated like this. What you're doing by that is you're kind of giving yourself fresh eyes or a fresh perspective, because we can get so caught up in a painting that we start to look at the photo or whatever it is that we're looking at, and it can feel like we can't really see anything new in it. I have noticed for myself that I'll look at a painting the next day and I'm thinking, what was I even thinking here? I totally missed this, or I didn't do this right. It just is a way to, again, give yourself, in the sense, fresh eyes to be able to look at that photo and pick out the main elements or things that you want to represent in your painting. Remember also that you don't have to copy your photo reference exactly the way that it is in the photo, unless that's the type of painting that you're going for. My next tip is add dark values. I shared this tip in my last video about how adding these dark colors really makes a huge difference in your overall painting. I'm talking about, again, values, so it's talking about your lightest colors all the way to your darkest colors. That's another reason why I feel it's important to take a break every once in a while, even just to get up from the painting and to come back and think, is there enough contrast going on here? Are my lights light enough and my darks dark enough? With watercolor, you really do need to let your paintings dry completely so you can see how the values are affected. Feel free to go back as many times as it takes to get those darks really in the place where you want them. Overlap your paintings. In essence, it's just letting these paintings kind of melt into the distance. You're just kind of letting them fade out till they just slightly overlap with your next little painting. And what I think this does is, of course, creates cohesion between all three paintings. And it also gives you an interesting background for your writing as well. It might look a little strange now, but once you do get all your writing in, it will make so much more sense to you as a complete composition in this particular type of layout. Now that I have these two paintings pretty much done, I go back and tweak them later. I'm going to add in this last vignette or a little close-up scene of a tree trunk and some mushrooms. I'm going to be inking in this next painting, and I'm going to do that so you can see it a little bit better than the pencil that I put down already. And my next tip for that is to keep your drawing simple. If we know we're going to paint something, it's just a good idea to keep everything fairly simple. Keep it as an outline. Don't worry about trying to draw all the details. Really, what I'm just going to do here is put in most of these shapes of the tree trunk, of the little shelf mushrooms, and then maybe a few bits of greenery here and there. Even though I am tempted to always draw in these little fine details, I don't have to. And if I don't do that, then it really helps me to keep the whole picture overall simplified, so I don't get overwhelmed by all the little myriad of details that are in this picture. And here I'm going to just use some masking fluid and mask off those little shelf mushrooms. By keeping your drawing simple, then you can draw with your paintbrush. One of the advantages of watercolors are the fact that the colors can just melt into each other, and you can also mix the colors together on the page. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm just adding in tones of colors that I feel like I see. I'm adding some grays, but I'm also warming those grays up with brown, and I'm also putting in some blues, ultramarine, and a little bit of yellow ochre, and maybe even alizarin crimson or burnt sienna. There's just different colors that I see, and I'm using my brush to just go ahead and create the texture to this tree trunk especially. This is also a really great time saver. If you don't like something too, you can always just take a piece of tissue or paper towel and blot out whatever areas that you don't like, or you can lighten them with that as well. There's just so much that you can do with watercolor, and creating texture this way is just, again, a quick time saver, and it allows you to be creative and experiment and to learn a little bit more about how the watercolors work, even with your specific type of watercolor paper. A lot of artists just paint with their paintbrushes, and even though that feels intimidating, remember you do have that simple drawing underneath that you have as your foundation. So really what you're doing is just filling in the rest of those details with, again, just some designs, some blobs, some shapes. You're just trying to help keep the idea of randomness in your painting. In other words, you don't want all of your leaves to look the same. You don't want all your grass to move the same way. You want things to be going all different directions, because that feels more real. It feels more natural, especially when you look at your reference photo and compare your painting with what you see in the photo. If you haven't already tried this technique, I would highly recommend it, that you just allow your paintbrush and your colors to really dictate what the objects are in the painting, especially when they're not the main objects. Again, this is one of the things that I really, really love about watercolors, is the ability to blend, merge, and to create that amazing texture with just your brush and some watercolor paint. If this video has helped in any way, please make sure to click that like button. I always super appreciate it. Also, I would love it if you would subscribe if you haven't already for more nature art and journaling as well. And remember to leave a comment and let me know how you feel about any of these tips. And please share the video as well. Follow me over on Instagram at my_Nature Diaries, and I'll see you there. Here's a bonus tip since you watched to the end of the video, and that is the best way to improve, and this is talking about your art, is simply this, and that is to make sure you make art. because ultimately you can't fail at something if you don't even try. And if you try, you're bound to get better because you're going to learn and improve and study. So remember to make your beautiful art. And also, I want you to remember that you are so amazing and creative. Thanks so much for watching as always. And until next time, I'll see you then. Bye.